It's happened again. This time, it was the biggest hack in the history of DeFi at $611 million. It's time for Cardano to usher in a new era of security in smart contracts. Ready? Let's go. I feel bad for the people who lost money today. I do. But honestly, the timing couldn't possibly be better for Alonzo to drop. The industry is begging for a better and safer way, more secure way to do smart contracts, and Cardano is going to bring that. We're going to talk about what happened today and how the Cardano era, I did say Cardano era, is going to be completely different. But first, take a look at this. Our favorite senator in the world, Senator Shelby of Alabama, who almost single-handedly blocked every attempt to fix the crypto provisions in the infrastructure bill yesterday, somehow, Senator Shelby or his staff, I don't know who, somebody thought it was a good idea to make this tweet today. In this tweet, he basically tries to convince us that he actually was supporting the Toomey cryptocurrency amendment. He knew all along that it was important for innovation and job creation. That was actually him supporting it, guys. We had it totally wrong. We were completely mistaken. That was actually what it looks like when a senator is supporting an amendment. So one of the most accurate and I think it was a pretty immediate response to this was someone saying that this tweet was going to be one of the most deeply ratioed tweets in the history of Twitter. If you don't know, when a tweet is ratioed, that means that the ratio of responses to likes is extremely high. So like a huge number of people are going to respond to this tweet, but very few people are going to actually like it because everybody hates it. And indeed, that seems to have been the case. Senator Shelby got 218 likes on this tweet, and I believe when I checked just a few minutes ago, there were 2,700 responses. Almost every single one is just like derision and outrage that he would even attempt to spin this way. But I mean, I guess the same senator and staff who thought it was a good idea to do what he did yesterday, those are the same people who would think that this tweet was a good idea. To the matter at hand, Poly Network got wrecked today. They got wrecked. So it all started out with this important notice, like, hey guys, here's a semi-important notice. You may take note of this later on in the day. Let us be the first to tell you. Anyways, very nonchalant way to say assets have been transferred to hackers following addresses. And they list the addresses of this attacker, this exploiter, who had obviously hacked them. At least they use the word hacked. They did not list the amount. That's pretty normal when these legacy DeFi projects get hacked. It seems like they usually don't list the actual amount that was hacked unless it was very small. If it's very small, they list it. If it's incredibly large, as was the case here, then they often don't list it. And if you're wondering what Poly Network is, it is not Polygon, which is Matic. It is actually Poly Network, which is the cross-chain bridge, but some of the assets that were hacked were Polygon. The rest of the assets were Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum. If you don't know what that means, a cross-chain bridge like this allows you to take, say, Ethereum tokens, send them to the bridge, and then on the other side, you can get Binance Smart Chain tokens. Confusingly, Poly Network also bridges to Polygon, which is Matic. And this led everybody to assume that Polygon, which is Matic, had been hacked. So there was a lot of confusion. It was actually Poly Network that was hacked. Now that we're clear on exactly what was hacked, the interesting part is actually how much was hacked. $611 million worth, 85 on Polygon, 253 on BSC, 273 on Ethereum. If this hacker were a Silicon Valley tech startup, he would be most of the way to becoming a unicorn. That's how big this was. He did it all in like one day. How did the hacker pull off this gigantic heist? A postmortem's already been done by Kelvin Fichter. According to Kelvin, Polynetwork forgot to prevent users from calling a certain contract. And the problem with that is this contract had a list of public keys that were allowed to authenticate data coming from one side of the bridge, from one of the chains. And as long as you could modify that list, so if you can modify that list of public keys that can authenticate data coming from one of the chains, then you could just add your own public address to the list. Then you could authenticate data that shouldn't be authenticated. I haven't even read deeply enough into Kelvin's thread yet to find out exactly what the attacker did once he had his public keys on that list, but I'm guessing it amounts to something similar to authenticating a bunch of data, which indicated that the attacker had sent a bunch of assets to the bridge that entitled the attacker to this $611 million worth of Ethereum, BSC, and Polygon assets on the other side of the bridge. The fun did not end there. If you look in Etherscan, you can see that the attacker was sending messages like, "Wonder why tornado? Will miners stop me? Teach me, please." Tether actually did try to do its part to stop the attacker. A bunch of other networks did too. I think Binance posted about it and a bunch of others. They all tried to do what they could to slow down the attacker, to prevent the attacker from making off with the assets. So USDT, Tether was among those. And apparently the Poly Network exploiter, you can see here in Etherscan, they immediately labeled this address the Poly Network exploiter. This is the Ethereum address of the attacker. And the attacker was trying to move the USDT assets and couldn't understand why he couldn't move those assets. So eventually this user here, hanashiro.eth, this is the Ethereum name service address for this person. You can see the actual address right there. They sent this message to the attacker. If you don't know, in Etherscan, messages can show up here and you can see them if you go to the UTF-8 view. Hanashiro sent, "Don't use your USDT token. You've got blacklisted," which was exactly the case. Apparently, the attacker really appreciated this little tip and immediately sent Hanashiro.eth $42,000 worth of Ether. Immediately, people started criticizing Hanashiro.eth for abetting the attacker and basically being in receipt of stolen assets. So Hanashiro.eth started making these 1.337 Ether donations to Binance Charity, Archive.org. I actually think that's a good one. Etherscan, Infura.io, and looks like 4 separate donations to this address that's labeled Rekt DAO donate. The attacker was also posting messages like this: "What if I make a new token and let the DAO decide where the tokens go?" Obviously, this is a complete train wreck for Poly Network, so they posted this letter publicly in the hopes that the hacker would see it. They were largely maligned for addressing this letter. "Dear hacker, we are the Poly Network team. We want to establish communication. We urge you to return the hacked assets." Then they got a little threatening. They said, "The amount of money you hacked is the biggest one in DeFi history. Law enforcement in any country will regard this as a major economic crime and you will be pursued. It is very unwise for you to do any further transactions. The money you stole are from tens of thousands of crypto community members. You should talk to us to work out a solution." I don't know if making threats was the right move at this point, but people definitely spent a good part of the day mocking Poly Network for writing a letter that starts with "Dear hacker," and then threatening the hacker with things that the hacker inevitably would have already thought about. The hacker, like it seems like every hacker recently has done, claims that he could have hacked even more if he'd wanted to. He says he could have made it to $1 billion if he wanted to. But he says, of course, he's not interested in the money. Now he's considering returning some tokens or just leaving them here in this address. which would have the possibility of those tokens just sort of being burned forever if no one could ever access them except for the hacker. Or I always have this sneaking suspicion that somewhere down the road, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, these guys always come back and they try to figure out a way to whatever they can to somehow launder these coins and turn them into spendable assets. We don't know if any of these Poly network users will ever see their coins again, but it is notable that Dear Hacker started trending, and along with it was hashtag Cardano. Along with this news of the Poly network hack, we also are finding out on the same day that Charles and IOHK know exactly what day Alonzo's going to happen. They're going to tell us this Friday. They've got to, I think they want to talk to their partners, the exchanges, everybody who's involved before they actually tell us the exact date. Just make sure there aren't any unforeseen problems. But it sounds like on Friday, they're going to tell us the exact date of Alonzo. Charles said it was a very achievable date or something like that, which tells me it's probably not August 31st. It tells me it's probably the first epic ending in September, and maybe it'll be that date. Maybe it'll be this September 7th date. I'd be surprised if he was going to go past September 7th, but I think when he said it was very achievable, that was him signaling that it wasn't August, the end of August. It was going to be the first part of September. So I think we're going to see an announcement on Friday. That's going to be the mid-month development update. I believe on Friday they're going to tell us that we are going to see Alonzo the first week of September. You already know Alonzo brings us Goguen Era smart contracts. The timing couldn't possibly be better for this. We've seen nothing but hacks and rug pulls in the legacy smart contract systems. I mean, are we approaching $1 billion in losses in 2021? I mean, we just had 611 million. I think between the rug pull / hacks, whatever you think they were with the Ethereum stake pools, we saw something maybe approaching 100 million, if I'm counting right. I mean, that alone brings us to almost 3/4 of $1 billion of losses. And then you've got all of the other hacks, all the other assorted DeFi hacks. I mean, we might be approaching legit $1 billion in losses in 2021. People are sick of it. Nobody wants to give their assets to some platform that might get hacked. And I think everybody realizes at this point that this is going to be the excuse, not really the reason, but the excuse that the regulators use to come in and regulate DeFi. This is going to be part of it. The other part of it's going to be this fear of, money laundering and bad guys, using DeFi. But it's going to be this too, now that we've lost, most of $1 billion in a single day in crypto here. This is going to be the excuse the regulators use. So everybody's sick of the prospect of their assets getting hacked because you're kind of just out if this happens in most cases. And everybody knows that this is going to be a magnet for regulators. This is going to be a great impetus for the regulators to come in even more quickly when stuff like this happens. That's why it's perfect timing for Cardano to finally launch a smart contract system with a formally verifiable programming language and an overall mentality that security should come before quick money making. Cardano has taken its sweet time to build a smart contract system that would be as secure as possible. And it's paid the price for that in terms of PR. It has taken a beating for years for how slow development has been. But now all that work is finally going to come to fruition. We're finally going to hit Alonzo. We'll have smart contracts. And Cardano is imbued with this sense that the top priority should be things like security. So we're going to have smart contract certification, where academics who are actually at the cutting edge of smart contract security will be looking at smart contracts and saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't allow that smart contract to be called here because somebody could add their public key and then they could misauthenticate data coming into your bridge platform. Cardano is actually going to have things like that because there's this overall thinking in Cardano that security should come first, that formal verification should be a thing in cryptography. Like all these things, these are the same reasons why it's taken so long to develop this platform, but those are also the reasons why we're going to have such a greater level of security. There are going to be hacks in Cardano. I've said that all along, and Charles even mentioned it on the video today. There are going to be hacks in Cardano because it's a permissionless blockchain, just like Ethereum, just like all the rest of the blockchains that are open to the world. So people can build anything. They can even build terrible smart contracts, terrible dApps that aren't secure, and those are going to get hacked. But in Cardano, there is this greater overarching thinking that you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it the secure way. So I think we're going to have certified smart contracts, certified dApps that a lot of people who know what they're doing have actually looked at. And there's going to be this greater level of safety. On top of that, that's all going to be built on top of what I think is going to be the most secure blockchain smart contract system ever deployed. The timing couldn't possibly be better for Cardano. I think this is going to be the beginning of a new era in smart contracts. Everybody else is going to have to play catch up, and Cardano is going to raise the bar for the entire industry. Everybody else is going to catch up, and things are going to get a lot safer and better. There will still always be hacks, just like big corporations get hacked every day. There will still always be hacks in crypto, but I think Cardano is about to start a new era where security is something that people actually care about, as opposed to just building as fast as they can and selling a bunch of governance tokens and then just kind of holding their hands up in dismay when they actually get hacked. I think it's going to be a new era where security is actually a priority. And no matter how much they cry about it at first, it's going to be good for the whole industry. Talk to you tomorrow.